Hello, and thank you for taking the time to view our online guide to working with intelligent pensions in the role of investment agent. We manage over £300 million of pre- and post-retirement pension plans for IFAs and their clients. Our unique low-cost SIPP, the Intelligent Pensions Select SIPP, was designed specifically to enable us to collaborate with financial advisors to provide an enhanced pension management service for clients. With access to a wide range of low-cost institutional funds, the IP Select SIPP is delivered at a product charge of just 0.75% per annum. That includes both the fund AMCs and the plan administration charge, including the administration of pension drawdown. The plan is administered by the James Hay Partnership, one of the leading SIPP providers in the UK, with over £18.5 billion under administration. With such a competitive fixed charge, there is scope for us and you to be suitably remunerated for our services while achieving an enhanced solution at a competitive price for your clients with significant added value. This is a classic collaboration and mirrors other professions such as GPs, family lawyers and accountants acting as the general practitioners, working with a specialist, whether that be a surgeon, barrister or tax consultant in more complex areas. In our case, we are the pension specialist, and as an award-winning firm, working with you as the general practitioner, jointly offer the perfect combination that optimizes client outcomes in an increasingly complex financial environment. Many IFAs already take advantage of this symbiotic arrangement while retaining control of their clients' overall financial affairs. However, as with other specialists, we take full responsibility for the advice that we provide on the client's pension under management. As you will be aware, under RDR rules, regulated firms must provide an ongoing service to receive ongoing remuneration. The introducing firm has a specific role in the pension arrangements by acting in the capacity of investment agent. This is a unique and separate regulated activity to that of financial advice. We provide the advice, including the investment strategy covering asset allocation, risk management and fund selection throughout the retirement period, including portfolio rebalancing and cash management. As investment agent, your firm would act in a transactional capacity, dealing in the buying, selling and switching of investment funds, and monitoring the trades thereafter for timely and accurate execution by the fund managers. This online guide explains how this role works in practice. This is, in effect, a tripartite arrangement involving James Hay as the administrator, ourselves as the advisor, and your firm as the investment agent, and governed by a legal contract. Part of the investment agent's duties is to process the client's investment instructions, covering purchases, sales, and switches. The primary duty of the investment agent is that of best execution. This requires online processing, tracking, and validation of all transactions to ensure they are completed on a timely and accurate basis. The initial process for those firms who are not currently using our services is as follows. Following your holistic planning approach, if you identify the need for specialist advice, for example, pension transfers or pension drawdown, then you can offer the services of Intelligent Pensions as a retirement planning specialist. Following the referral, we will carry out an analysis of the client's needs, create a retirement model, carry out due diligence assessments on all the client's existing plans to check transfer suitability, and then provide reports on all of those arrangements. We then carry out a full risk analysis, design a proposed investment portfolio, issue our final report with formal recommendations, and assuming the client wishes to proceed, we arrange all the transfers into the Intelligent Pensions Select SIPP. At that point, your firm would be appointed as the investment agent, and following the client's signed instructions, you then implement these transactions through the James Hay online portal, after which you will need to update your transaction register and check and validate the amounts and prices are correct and accurate. The process of carrying out online investment transactions couldn't be simpler. Buys, sells and switches are all at the touch of a button. Investment instructions are initially emailed to your office after we've received the client confirmation. You or a suitably trained member of your staff then carries out the trades online, and you subsequently check that all trades have been processed on a timely and accurate basis. The online transaction processing can be used for one-off purchases, sales or switches, including portfolio rebalancing and investing regular contributions, but with the requirement of checking and validation of all trades. Support initially and on an ongoing basis or formal training is able to be provided by Intelligent Pensions and James Hay staff. This is a typical example of a client rebalancing instruction, and this involves, as you can see, buys and sells, or may involve, in some cases, fund switches. The net result will often involve additional money being added to the member's cash account, for example, to cover outgoing benefit payments, or if there's a surplus in cash, then additions to the investments from the member's cash account. When Intelligent Pensions receive this instruction from the client, we will convert this to a modified trade instruction, which is then emailed to you along with a copy of the client's signed instruction to check. This modified trade instruction converts as much as possible of the instructed trades into fund switches for processing through James Hay Online as soon as possible. The reason for this is to minimize market timing risks for the clients. In other words, sells and buys are matched against one another to give the same result, but in the form of fund switches as part of an aggregated trade instruction. The modified instruction will appear slightly different to the client instruction, but the net result matches the signed instruction in all cases, subject of course to any unit price movements, as would normally be the case anyway. This is an example of the modified trade instruction that you would receive. Page 1 will show the switches out, and in this case 2 funds where we're switching cash amounts out, but also 1 fund is being sold in full. If there's a new fund to be added, this will be highlighted in page 1 of the instruction, but dealt with under stage 2 of the process. In each case, there will be a client reference which you can cross-check against the sign-off instruction, and this will be aggregated on page 3 of the modified instruction, which we'll look at in a minute. For switches in, there will be, if required, an amount to be allocated to the cash account, and any amounts being reinvested in other funds will be shown as a percentage of the total value of the switch out amounts. In this case, 13.64% going into Baillie Gifford Smaller Companies, and 86.36% going into the new fund, which can be added at this stage, and we'll show you how to do that shortly. The final page shows the consolidated trading instruction, and this should match the client's signed off instruction, showing the client references in each case. What's essential for your record keeping is that each trade is initialed either by the authorized advisor or somebody who's authorized to carry out the trades on their behalf. In every case, it will be necessary for the authorized individual to ensure that they have signed off this modified trade instruction, as well as the person who carries out the processing if it's being delegated to a member of your staff. These modified trade instructions should always be retained on file. There's also a transaction register, which I will be explaining to you later in this presentation. I'd now like to hand over to David Lucas, who's a platform account manager with James Hay Partnership. David.
Thank you, Steve. We're going to take you through the trading process, both for switching, for buys, and for sales through James Hay Online. We're going to be looking at how we access the screens, how we actually enter the information that's required, how the trades are executed, and also how you produce your trade receipts for your audit purposes. So firstly, once you've logged in to your James Hay Online account, it will bring up the client search screen. This is where you can then actually enter either the client number or the client surname to bring through the client file. Once into the client file, you're brought to the client hub screen, effectively, where you have all menu options available. Down the left-hand side of the screen, you can obtain information around the client's income, around their contributions, transactional reports, and the center section will provide you with a summary. Along the top bar, you will notice you've got some menu options. By clicking onto the trade option, this will then open the trade window. And it is from here that you can then select through to process your trades through James Hay Online for your Intelligent Pensions clients. You have the option to either buy, sell, or switch funds in the top right or middle right hand corner. And then under the symbol for regular trades, the orange symbol, if you click on regular trading, that will open the regular trading screen. We're going to look first though at switches. So as Steve mentioned, you'll have your consolidated trade instructions sent through to you, and you will hopefully notice that the layout of this is the same as the layout you have on these following screens. First of all, we're going to be looking at the switch out of funds. So on your trade instruction that you will have received from Intelligent Pensions, for any switches out, it will have given you a lump sum for the appropriate fund the client is invested in to be switched out. The exception to this is where the whole fund is to be switched, in which case you would select the whole fund box. So in this particular example, we have £4,000 being switched out of the Newton Global Equity GBP Income Fund and £6,000 out of the Schroeder Global Emerging Markets A Accumulation Fund. Once we've completed the switch out screen, we're brought to the switch in screen. You will notice at the top of the page is a section of cash available to switch. Now on your amended trade instruction, any cash to be realized for the client will be given as a financial amount. This needs to be added in the top highlighted field for cash to be returned to the product bank account. That's the trustee bank account. And that needs to be entered on the switch in instruction first. You will note the column before that is around initial advisor charge. For funds the client has already invested in, this should be set to 0. If the client is investing into new funds, we will then go through and add those funds. On new funds being invested into as brand new funds on a switch in, then the initial advisor charge will be set to that agreed with the client. And as we'll see later, on buys, if it is a new buy transaction, again, it will come down to the amount agreed with the client. We will also then see in the final column, we have the total percentage of available funds to switch into the fund. This will be given as a percentage on your modified trade instruction. Together, you then convert that as a percentage across onto the internet page. Finally, at the bottom of this section, you have a declaration and a tick box that needs to be completed. This is where you are confirming that the client has been provided with the key investor information documents for the UCITS funds and prospectus information where applicable. Once that's been ticked, if you then select Next, unless, of course, you want to add some new funds, which we will cover off on the buy section. So after you've hit Next, we then come to your transaction review screen. This will be your last opportunity to cross-reference the information that you've entered into the system with that information you've received from Intelligent Pensions on the modified trade instructions. So in the top section, we have those funds that you're switching out, The lump sums are what you are cross-referencing, but it will also give the information around the number of units that pertains. Below that, we have the funds that are being switched into, and again, the percentage of the available funds being switched. To the bottom third of this page, on the left-hand side, you will notice there are another two declarations that need to be completed. The first is being ticked to confirm that the client is eligible under the terms and conditions of the fund to invest in that fund. And the second is that you have given your clients the select fund terms and conditions, key features documents, and other necessary documentation in relation to the investment. Once you're happy that this matches with your trade instruction you've received, you then select Execute Now. This will send the switch instruction through to live trading. Once you've hit Execute Now, you will then have the option to print a trade receipt order. As this comes as a PDF, so as the PDF can be saved electronically as well as printed, this is how you then have a record for your audit trails. Once you're satisfied, you then click Finish. This next screen gives you an example of what your trade confirmation order will actually look like. It will detail who the user was, who the client was, the client name, and the date of submission together with the transaction IDs. It will give the information of the funds being switched out and also switched in. Now, buys as opposed to switches are where we're looking at the client investing new monies, normally from cash, into either funds they already hold in their select SIPP or new funds within the select fund range they want to invest in. So if we think back to when we had the trade screen, rather than selecting switches, we would select buys, and that would bring us then to this next screen, which details all the funds the client currently holds together with their latest values, the prices of the units, and the price dates. This is where it's very important that if the client already holds the fund and there's been no change in the agreement on the initial advisor charge, that you would need to put that in as a 0. If, though, there'd been a new agreement signed by the client, you could then amend that to what had been agreed. We will see in a moment how that differs when you add funds in. Where we have as the fund, the Baillie Gifford Emerging Markets, highlighted in yellow, this is a fund that is no longer available for investment as closed to new business. Once again, you would select the funds in which you wanted to invest. So in this particular case, we're investing £1,500 into the Royal London UK Mid Cap Growth M Accumulation Fund. You will notice at the bottom of the page, you also have to complete the tick box confirming that you've provided the client with the key investor information documents for the fund and the prospectus where applicable. Now, as I mentioned, it may be a case that the client wants to invest into a new fund. This is where you would click the Add Funds tab. This will then bring up a new screen with a search condition. Here, you need to actually search by the fund name. The reason for this is that within the select fund range, there are funds which do not have CDOs. So you need to look very carefully at the trade instruction that you have received from Intelligent Pensions for not only the fund name, but also the share class of the fund to ensure that you select the appropriate one. As we can see on this next page, we have 3 that we're looking at. The Threadneedle Global Growth Z Accumulations, Threadneedle Global Bond Growth Z Income, and Threadneedle Global Retirement Income. Now, obviously, each of these have a CDOL, but on your instruction, you would be looking back to which one you actually needed to add. To add the fund, you then select the Add box alongside it, as highlighted. This will then add the fund to the list of funds available to invest into. You will notice on this screen that we have 2 funds that are highlighted with a pending trade notice in orange. This will either be where you still have sell instructions outstanding on those funds or switch instructions outstanding on those funds. But again, to complete the trade on the sales, you would choose the lump sum as per the trade instruction you had received from Intelligent Pensions, or if you're selling out the entire fund, you would select the whole fund box. Another functionality within the online portal that we have is that at any time you can go in and see the client's transaction history. This is particularly useful as we recommend that normally within a 10-day period that you are reviewing those trades to ensure they have gone to market. If for any reason they're not showing, then you need to contact either Intelligent Pensions or James Hay Partnership directly, where we'll then investigate. Regular contributions. These will normally result in the client requiring regular trades to be set up. Now, with regular contributions, the client has to wet sign a supplemental contribution application form to be submitted. In addition to this, for the investment of regular trades, they need to sign a standing instruction that specifies a particular fund which will be reviewed annually. So from the initial trade screen that we opened, if we go into the regular trades that are highlighted beneath the orange button, it will bring up this screen that will show us any existing regular trade instructions that the client has. Now, in this particular example, it has no regular current trades in place. So we would select the new regular buy instruction. This then brings up a new window, which brings us to be able to select the frequency of trading. So monthly, quarterly, half yearly, or yearly. In most instances, the client will want these to start at the next available run date. So you would not edit any information in that field. However, if the client has specified a particular date they want the first trade to happen, you would edit the information in the next run date field. Similar to when you set up a standing order with your bank, if this trade is to run until further notice, you will leave the end date field blank, unless the client has stipulated that they only want the regular trades to proceed for a set amount of time, in which case you would add a date here. Finally, we have the total amount to be invested and the transaction basis. Once we're happy with this, we then select Next. This then enables us to select either the funds the client has already invested in, or again, they could add new funds, but it must be as is stated in the client's signed investment instruction. Similarly, the initial advisor charge must also be as stipulated in the client's signed instruction. From here, when you're happy with the information, you would then select Next. If the initial advisor charging does not match that the client has selected, you will get an exception message, in which case you will have to go back and readjust what you have entered into the screen. If we go back to a situation where a client already has a regular trade instruction in place, you will see that this will already be detailed in the regular trade instructions screen. To amend this, we would then need to select the relevant button that we'll show in a moment. But once we're ready to confirm the new regular instruction, we have the summary. We have to confirm the client is eligible under the terms of the funds, and then we execute now to take to market. And then we get our transaction summary, which you can print for your audit trails. This final screen, under Preference ID, would then enable us to go back and edit any existing regular trade instruction that the client may have. So we've covered off switches in and out, buys, sells, and regular trades. And I'll hand back to you, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The next stage in the process, having registered the trade, is to update your online transaction register, and we provide this to you free of charge. It's in the format of an Excel spreadsheet, and it should be run as a continuous trading register and is very important for audit purposes should you happen to get an FCA inspection visit. Quite simply, for each transaction, you enter the client name or reference number, the plan number, the fund name, whether it's a buy or sell, bearing in mind that switches will comprise both a buy and sell, and the amount in each case. The amount and the price taken from the trading transaction receipt from James Hay Online, and the date on which that transaction was sent to market. Stage 3 is confirmation. James Hay will then process the trades with the fund managers, and you should carry out your online check around 10 working days after the trading has been instructed. And at that point, you would go back and update your transaction register. For all purchases, including for that matter switch-ins, clients are automatically sent statutory cancellation notices. You may want to let them know that these may not always appear to match their instructions due to the conversion from sells and buys into switches, and to ignore them unless they really do not want to proceed with the transaction. You should bear in mind that if the client does return a cancellation notice, James Hay are obliged to sell the holding automatically, and it would then remain in cash until a new instruction is signed by the client. Once you've received confirmation, you then validate the trade. The actual price secured, which will usually be slightly different to the quoted price just due to market movements, and the number of units actually secured. Should there be any comment that you need to add, for example, if there was a change of fund name or if there was any query that had to be raised with the James Hay Investment Centre, you can add the note to the right-hand side for your records. The investment agent's primary duty is that of checking that trades have been carried out correctly and on a timely basis. If you have any queries about the price, or for that matter the time taken to complete a transaction, you should contact James Hay. Now, this can only be done using the secure email facility within the James Hay online system, as James Hay Partnership will not accept normal emails for data protection reasons. We also recommend you keep a copy for your client file record. If you have any other queries, we will be happy to help. Just a brief note regarding the regulatory basis for intermediation on investments. Intelligent Pensions provides the intermediary service to clients on the establishment and operation of the SIPP plan, including all advice on the investment strategy before and during retirement and the provision of benefits thereafter. IP therefore intermediates between the customer and James Hay as the operator and administrator of the SIPP. As investment agent, you would be operating an intermediary service between the customer and the fund managers, for example BlackRock, Baillie Gifford, etc., via the James Hay online platform. Only authorised firms are allowed to act as investment agents. Under the FCA rules, the regulated activity involved is arranging (bringing about) deals in investments, and this is a separate and distinct regulated activity to that of advising on investments. And a final point, for the purposes of your firm's new business register with the FCA, these should be recorded as trustee investments, not SIPPs or for that matter pension drawdown, and should be entered as transaction only rather than execution only. And the key point is that advice has been given by Intelligent Pensions, and under the FCA definition, execution only would only apply where no advice has been provided from any source. Thank you very much for your time, and if anybody has any queries, then please send us an email in the general inquiries section on our website.